What up? It's your boy Wall Street, and I'm back. You cannot keep me off this microphone. Hope everyone that's listening and tuning in is having a glorious day, because I am. And it's about to get more glorious because we're going to talk about some hoops. So today, I want to talk about Malcolm Brogdon, a.k.a. Uncle Malcolm, a.k.a. Unc, a.k.a. Young President, because this dude is still sitting out there in free agency, unsigned, and I want to talk about where I think he should land, right? Because, obviously with free agency, especially with guys that are not, the cream of the crop free agents and that wind up sitting for a while, the speculation starts to build, and there's millions of teams, obviously that's figurative, but so many teams that get placed in this, media circus of oh, he should go here, he should go there, yada, yada, whatever, right? So I've seen every team be mentioned with Malcolm Brogdon. But I think there's a couple that I personally think would make more sense, right? Because Malcolm Brogdon is a guy who played less than 30 games last season for the Wizards. Only played 24 games, started 13 of them, played 23.5 minutes per night, which is the lowest he's had in a season in his career. Averaged 12.7 points per game, 4.1 assists, 3.8 rebounds, and shot below 30% from three for the first time in his career. But, it's a very small sample size, so, it's hard to get in rhythm when you're only playing 25, or 24 games a season. So let's talk about where he should go. Right, because I think there's a couple teams that could use a guy like Brogdon, who's a veteran in the league. He's a guy who plays both the point guard and the shooting guard spot. And he's a guy that can score, he can pass the ball, he can facilitate. He's a very high IQ basketball player. And I think there's a couple teams that could use his expertise, right? So obviously the one that gets thrown around with every free agent and their mother is the Los Angeles Lakers. But I do think the Lakers are a good landing spot for Brogdon if he does choose to go out west. Right now their depth chart has Luka at the 1, Austin Reeves at the 2, Rui Hachimura at the 3, LeBron at the 4, and DeAndre Ayton at the 5, right? And then some key guys coming off the bench are Marcus Smart, Gabe Vincent, Jake LaRavia, Jared Vanderbilt, Jackson Hayes. But if I had to pick, right, I'd rather have Malcolm Brogdon as my first point guard off the bench than Gabe Vincent, right? And I like Gabe Vincent, but he hasn't really been that useful to the Lakers. I think he was a little bit better, last season than he was the season prior. Obviously, has been dealing with injuries and stuff like that, but I just still think I'd rather have Malcolm Brogdon. I don't know what happens to Gabe Vincent at that point. Maybe he's just not playing as much, or, they try to do a sign and trade. I don't know. But also, Marcus Smart, who just signed there after being bought out by the Wizards. He's not really a guy that's going to be a primary ball handler. So I would imagine if Marcus Smart is in, it's going to be a guy like Austin Reeves or Luka also on the court with him that's bringing the ball up and facilitating the offense. Or LeBron, right? Who knows? But Malcolm Brogdon's a guy that is a much better facilitator, in my opinion, than Marcus Smart. So I would probably want him to be a ball handler that can come in and give some of the other ball handling guys, a relief on the bench, right? So when Luka's out, when Austin Reeves is out, when LeBron's out, Malcolm Brogdon can come in and do his thing and, really facilitate the offense, take really good care of the basketball, things like that, right? So the Lakers, to me, make sense. I also think a team like the Detroit Pistons could be a good landing spot for him. I don't think it's likely, but I think that's a situation where Cade Cunningham obviously just had the best season of his career. He's the primary ball handler. Jaden Ivey should be coming back. I don't know if he's going to be ready to start the season or not, but he's been out since January. And then Asar Thompson is not really a high-level ball handler at this point in his career. He certainly can do it, but he's not at that level yet, right? So I don't think they want to give him that pressure. But you have Marcus Sasser coming off the bench for Cade Cunningham. You have Karis LeVert coming off the bench for Jaden Ivey, presumably at the 2 spot. So this team doesn't really have a lot of ball handlers, a lot of ball handlers outside of Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey, right? So adding a veteran like Malcolm Brogdon not only helps from the perspective that you have another ball handler to really make things move and facilitate the offense, but you also have another veteran presence that can join, Tobias Harris and Duncan Robinson in that locker room and really, show guys what it's about and, how to go about your business in the league. So I think that's another really good landing spot. The other two that I have on my list, I don't know why I keep I think there's air quality problems today, guys. So if I keep clearing my throat, that's what's going on. Don't judge me. I think the other two good landing spots for him would be the Boston Celtics, which I think Boston's kind of at the bottom of my list, but obviously he has some history there. He's talked about how Boston's one of the few teams in the league that just has culture from the top down, from the front office to the coaches to the players to the training staff, everybody, right? So I think he was a fan of his time in Boston. Obviously, I think it ended kind of poorly because they wanted to, trading him, and he was a part of some failed trade discussions, and then the cat was kind of out of the bag at that point. And I think it doesn't make a lot of sense because they have Derek White. They have Peyton Pritchard. They have Hugo Gonzalez, who they just drafted. I think all of these guys are going to be primary ball handlers for this club. And Anthony Simons, who knows if he's going to stay or if he's going to go. You also have Jaylen Brown. Jason Tatum is obviously going to miss all of next season with the Achilles injury. But at the end of the day, man, Malcolm Brogdon is probably signing for the mid-level or the vet minimum. So if you can add him, why not do it, right? I just don't know if that's going to be a place where he wants to go. He was Sixth Man of the Year in Boston, when he was there. And, Peyton Pritchard's now Sixth Man of the Year, also in Boston. So I just don't think that fit makes a ton of sense. But I do think in terms of the play style, in terms of the professionalism, the intensity that Malcolm Brogdon brings to the table, that cultural fit with him in the Boston Celtics is, very on point, but again, I don't think it's gonna happen. The last one that I think also probably will not happen, but I think should happen because I think it would honestly make this team even better after they've already had an amazing offseason, is the Atlanta Hawks. So the Atlanta Hawks have had just a spectacular offseason, right? They acquired, an unprotected 2026 first-round pick from the Pelicans, and they were still able to draft Asa Newell, based on that trade, they basically moved back in the draft. They moved back from 13 to 23. They got an unprotected first-round pick in 2026. That's the better of Milwaukee or New Orleans pick. Not sure why New Orleans did that, but, to each their own, whatever. Maybe they got a plan. Who knows? Derek Queen is nice, so I am seeing a little bit of reasoning behind that, but that's besides the point. The Atlanta Hawks have added Kristaps Porzingis this offseason. They're going to get Jalen Johnson back, who was a big piece for them. I thought Jalen Johnson, if he didn't get injured last season, he could have been an all-star. Dyson Daniels just led the league in steals. They have a very good young team, and I think adding another veteran presence to this team would be absolutely it would be a home run. It would be a home run for sure. Because the depth chart right now is Trae Young at the 1, Dyson Daniels at the 2, Jalen Johnson at the 3, Kristaps Porzingis at the 4, and Onyeka Okongwu at the 5. So coming off the bench for the guard spots, you have Kobe Buffkin, you have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and then you have Luke Kennard, basically, right? And you have Zachary Risachet, who could come in and play the 2. He's probably not going to be a ball handler. He's not going to be playing the 1 all that much. But they also have Keaton Wallace, who I'm a big fan of. That's Cason Wallace's brother. But I think bringing in Malcolm Brogdon here gives you a guy that can come off the bench, relieve Trae Young of some of the ball handling responsibilities, right? He could also play alongside Trae Young and get him good spot-up looks. And that's really it. I just think Malcolm Brogdon, his value is in the fact that he's a veteran that is extremely professional, works extremely hard, takes very good care of his body, is very meticulous about how he operates, on and off the court. And he's a guy that is, he's 6'4", 230 pounds. He's like a power, guard, right? So this is a guy that could help the Atlanta Hawks a lot. He's also from Atlanta, so I think that little, homecoming aspect of it, also adds a little fuel to the fire. But I just think with the offseason the Hawks have already had, adding a guy like Malcolm Brogdon who can be a veteran that can come in off the bench. He doesn't need a ton of minutes. He can make a solid impact and relieve some of your star players like Trae Young or, Dyson Daniels, and come in and just handle the ball and let them do their thing, right? Dyson Daniels is really a staunch defender. He's going to lock guys up. He can't really, give all of his energy to being a primary ball handler when he also has to lock up guys defensively, right? It depends on the matchup, right? Dyson Daniels is young. He's got a lot of energy, a lot of stamina, but at the same time, you want to be able to give guys breaks where you can, right? And if you can add a veteran like Malcolm Brogdon, I say why not? So those are my thoughts. I've heard some other teams be thrown around. They've talked about the Sacramento Kings. People have been talking about the Clippers. I don't think he's going to go to the Clippers, especially after Chris Paul and Bradley Beal got there. Frankly, if the Clippers add Malcolm Brogdon, I'm sure Kendrick Perkins would have a lot to say about it. He was talking about how the Clippers are basically turning into an old people home. And I thought that was funny. But it is kind of like, it's basically like where dudes are going to retire, right? And I don't think Malcolm Brogdon's ready to retire yet. So I don't know if the Clippers fit from that perspective. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I want to know your thoughts. Where do you think Malcolm Brogdon should sign for the 25-26 NBA season? Looking forward to hearing what you guys think, man, and I'm going to catch you guys later. Stay up, stay blessed, stay safe, stay humble, handle business, stand on business. Peace out.